Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
You know who I can do without? I can do without the people in the video store.
Which ones?
All of them. They never rent quality flicks. They always pick the most intellectually devoid movie on the racks.
And now, on with the show.
The future's toughest cop is Katie Coltrane.
I'm back.
And now, she's getting a new partner.
Dun, 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 dun.
His name is Teddy.
Hit me. It's a dinosaur.
You two solved this case together.
What? What? It's a dinosaur.
New partner, Coltrane?
Coming this summer.
Attention, please.
The world premiere
You ain't seen nothing yet.
of an action-filled family adventure.
Behold, I give you prehistoric life.
It's a story of two kids. One huge discovery.
It must have been frozen in those eggs for ages.
And a lovable bunch of prehistoric pets.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Loose Cannon. I am one of your video store clerks. I am Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I trot down the aisles of this cornucopia of crap, as we call here on Loose Cannon. We decided to take a look at the big box video releases you may have seen at Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, your local mom and pop. Some good, some great, some questionable content, you might say. But I'm not alone as I work this ugly, ugly shift. I'm joined by my co-host, my compatriot, one of my best friends from the lovely city of Kitchener.
Alex, the producer.
And I'm also joined from the land of America, one of my smartest friends. He does a lot of really awesome stuff in the role-playing game industry. My good friend from Lansing, Michigan.
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
And we're deciding to import another strange individual. He does a podcast that I've become a very huge fan of since, I think, September of or October of last year. I'm talking about the host, one of the hosts of Welcome to Primetime, a Freddy's Nightmare podcast from... Where the fuck are you from, Henrique, again? Somewhere in Ohio?
I'm from Dayton, Ohio, the Paris of Ohio.
and what an introduction for somebody, right? Like, where the fuck are you from?
Well, I've been to Dayton a whole lot of times. That's where the Air Force Museum is.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I've decided to put together this show of these people because this actually came out of a very strange place, because I've been listening to Henrique's podcast, Welcome to Primetime, for a couple of months now. There's been a reoccurring joke between him and his co-host, David Louis DeNoyer. He's going to hit me for that. Where he's talked about the movie Theodore Rex. And up here in Canada, I seem to recall theatrical movie posters for this because it was everywhere in 1995, I want to say. I remember it being at the theater. I remember it being in movie rental stores, but I never saw it until literally this morning when we were putting together this podcast. And I'm like, okay, if Enrique's talking about it and he says it's a fever dream, I've got to know, what the fuck is this?
It's a fever dream. It's a fever dream for Americans. Everywhere else, we got to see it in theaters. Or I guess the fact that they didn't report the box office numbers for worldwide, even though it had a worldwide theatrical release outside of the States, is telling.
No, it's fine. They just lost it. Whoops. We don't. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. Those numbers.
Well, and that's the thing, is I know, I don't know if we have a specific order, Mike, but I saw this in theaters.
See, I never saw it, but I saw the movie poster in my lobby because it's Whoopi Goldberg and a fucking dinosaur. How do you not remember this?
Yeah, and the artwork is a bright yellow or a bright orange yellow background too. It like just screams at you.
Yeah, it's so striking. Like, look at me.
Well, and you got to consider ages too, right? Of like when this came out, I was like 8 or 9.
You youngins.
I know. So for me, like, I was a massive fan of like the dinosaurs sitcom, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So I was like, I want to see this. And I want to say that this is one of those movies where my parents and a few other parents dropped the kids off and just left us in the theater on like a $2 matinee. But I remember the theater being like empty with like maybe 3 kids, all of them who came with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that being it. Then I like forgot the movie existed until you mentioned it. It was like in my brain and gone forever until I started watching it. And as I'm watching it, I'm going, wait, I know what's happening in the plot. Yeah. How do I know what's happening in the plot? And that's when I went, I did see this in theaters, 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah, this was one of those movies that, again, I remember seeing the movie poster in my local lobby of this mall that doesn't exist anymore. And as Henrique was saying, it's this striking yellow-orange poster. And I had all I knew, it was Whoopi Goldberg, who was fresh off of Sister Act. I think New Jack, or not.
I don't think she was in New Jack City.
No, I mean, I would have been an amazing addition.
I was going to say, and
Jumping Jack Flash, right? Was that the other movie she did?
That was like 10 years earlier.
Yeah. So like either way, I knew who she was. My grandmother at the time was a huge fan of Whoopi Goldberg because she just thought she was funny. And, I really like Sister Act. So I'm thinking, all right, so that's cool. I just never got around to seeing this movie. But I remember specifically, we had a video store around the corner from me. I think it was called Gamma Video or Hollywood Video in Canada. It was kind of a mom and pop kind of knockoff store. It was right by my high school. And right above the kids section, right by the Nintendo games and the horror movie section, which are weirdly positioned close to each other, there was this giant Theodore Rex poster. And I want to say they even had the standee for this thing. I never even saw a trailer for this until I saw the movie literally before this podcast review. I had no idea what this movie was even fucking about. And then when I watched the movie, I'm like, this is kind of heavy, like dinocide, murder, cloning, destruction of the world, the bad guy from the X-Files movie.
See,
like, wow.
I'm older than you guys, right? So when this came out in the US, I saw it I likely saw it either on Comedy Central or Sci-Fi Channel. And one of those type channels. And I was already up in Lansing at college. I was like 3rd year at college or something like that. So I do remember seeing this movie, but I also remember being drunk and seeing this movie. And not in the theaters, obviously, just on television, sitting in my apartment, like with a beer and just not understanding what the hell is happening to me. God, this movie, man, this, as I said, this is a trial. This movie was a trial. And this came from the freaking same writer that wrote Last Starfighter and My Science Project.
Yep.
And I love those movies. Especially Last Starfighter. I love that movie. And I cannot believe this is the same person.
Well, you're speaking of Jonathan Betchel, who is how I brought up Theodore Rex on my Freddy's Nightmares podcast, because he was the supervising producer on the first season of Freddy's Nightmares and wrote 1 episode and directed 2 episodes of the Freddy Krueger TV series.
Which episodes did he write and direct?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But I know that we might be getting him for an interview on the podcast.
Oh,
wow.
He has to answer for the crimes of Theodore Rex.
Just 2 questions. How and why? It's just that's all you have to ask. No, nothing else, no other context.
For some reason, New Line thought this movie needed to dump $33.5 million into this film.
Well,
I don't know why. And $7 million of that just went to Whoopi Goldberg.
And yet it looks like the like love child of the Super Mario Brothers movie and like Judge Dredd.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why does this look like Dino Hatton meets Judge Dredd? And okay, so I was watching a video on JoeBlow.com, and in this movie's, I'm sure, epic page turner novelization, did you know Whoopi Goldberg's character of what the fuck, Coltrane or whatever the fuck her name is RoboCop? Yeah.
What?
She was a cyborg brought back to life as a BioWare. There are lines of dialogue in this movie that says, "Is your BioWare functioning properly. And
yeah, when she visits the coroner,
yeah,
there's like a weird piece of dialogue where and even she's walking funny, and I was like, is she supposed to be a cyborg or a clone? Like it didn't make sense. I can't remember the exact dialogue from it, but it felt odd, and I'm like, it was stuff cut here, and you know what it is? It's a certain look of like the way they did the practical effects, the director of photography, everything. It has that Judge Dredd, Mario Brothers, like Double Dragon kind of look and feel.
I would also add to that Demolition Man.
Yes.
I was thinking that too. The difference being this has that like almost like Ninja Turtles, everything looks kind of wet and dark all the time.
And yet hyper vibrant at times too.
Yeah. Like a pretty apocalypse.
Like I was fully expecting like Michael Ironside to fly in or something from like Highlander 2 like on like a hoverboard or something like that, and I'd be like, and I would have been like, okay,
that tracks.
Yeah, I mean it's such a weird looking, and I think what really brings it like down or like takes me out of the film is it looks fine. It's the sound mixing that is terrible. The ADR is so bad. Like every dinosaur sounds like it's right in your face, and everybody else is layered properly, and you can feel that there's distance between them and the camera. They did a very poor job. And then of course you get like for a $33 million movie, you get like bargain basement sound effects and music for it. It was like, what is going on? Like it was probably the most expensive movie I've ever seen to use like royalty free music.
I mean, 33 million for 1995, 97, something like that.
It's like 100 million now.
Yeah, that's actually a decent budget. But honestly, I think most of it went to the dinosaur costumes
and Goldberg. Yeah,
and Goldberg. Yeah, and because I mean, the dinosaurs don't look bad at all. They're just they just feel weird being there.
For sure,
with how it's filmed and how the plot is. It's very, very, very disjointed.
One of the things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I laughed out loud when they went to the dead place where you freeze yourself.
Yeah.
And there's the little puppet dude.
Oh yeah.
And the way he's moving and talking, that looks so cheap. But I was laughing so hard because I had just watched The Mandalorian and it reminded me of the little tiny dudes.
Babu Frick, yeah.
And I was like, what is happening here? And all I could think of was like the whole time I'm like, how much better would this have been if the entire movie was made by the Jim Henson Company?
Yeah, like it's weird. I was also kind of watching that too, and again, I want to reference the Joe Blow video on this because I did like a 24-minute deep dive on this, and there's one of the actors in this, the voice of Theodore Rex himself. That's the DC Animated's Superman. That's George Newberry, which, okay, sure, voice actors got to work. And I don't know when this movie was in scripting, because like I said, the guy did my like science project, The Last Starfighter. Clearly he has a love of genre stuff. Why does the one character impersonate Mae West? Who in that age group knows who the fuck that is?
When that's a common thing. That's a common thing with children's stuff, though, because like Bugs Bunny would always do impressions of characters that kids never heard of.
But I mean, I feel cultured because of that. I knew who Peter Lorre is because of Bugs Bunny.
I knew who Mae West was, but only because of weird World War II references to like life jackets being Mae West's. And I don't know. I have a weird childhood. Okay,
well, you know what it might be too. Though, remember, Mike, like we're coming at it now, 25 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But remember when we were kids, like if you're a kid of the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, before the great expansion of every channel in the world existing, a lot of our programming was just stuff from like the Three Stooges era. All the shorts, all the we grew up with an appreciation, or whether we liked it or not, what was on TV a lot of the times was 50 to 70-year-old programming.
Yeah, I guess that's true because like we were in the era of the cable expansion. Like I grew up on Nickelodeon on pirate satellite. And that's how I got exposed to stuff like all the sitcoms out of the 50s and 60s, which is the only reason why I know certain things.
So I think now, like it would be much more jarring now for kids to watch it. They'd be like, they wouldn't. Well, first of all, they wouldn't know who Whoopi Goldberg is.
Yeah, like you're that lady from The View.
Yeah, like that would be the closest representation. They'd be like The View, but and they know nobody else. But like it, so I don't think it's quite as out of place. I mean, it was out of place in that it might have made more sense if this movie was made in the 80s versus the 90s for some of the references or some of the look of it. But like it everything in this. What's weird is if you didn't know for sure that it was an American movie, it would almost feel like a British movie.
Really, you think that? Okay.
Like I'm getting like what's the people that did the Thunderbirds, the Jerry Anderson. It's almost like the Jerry Anderson stuff. There was that show called Space Precinct around that same time, and they had like people in weird costumes and stuff like that.
I'm going to get you mad. I think this came across to me as a cheap Canadian sci-fi film.
Oh, you're not making me mad, dude.
Nah, that's fair.
It's a CBC written all over it.
What for those of us up here, CanCon was such a big deal where 30 to 40% of all stuff shown on TV had to be Canadian content. It never said what the budget had to be.
Yeah.
So like, believe me, like 90% of our childhoods growing up were like people with sock puppets on TV, right? So because $5, as long as it was all Canadian, counted as a Canadian show.
Mind you, our greatest Canadian export, Hilarious House of Frightenstein.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's because that aired on like WGN and stuff down there. But yeah,
can I also say that this movie reminds me of another movie that I watched within the past, let's say, 6 months, and that's The Island of Dr. Moreau. And the reason is that it's clear that no one gave a shit behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
and I thought you were going to say because Theodore Rex looks a lot like
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando, like late era Brando looks it's a little sus. If you take off that scarf or whatever he was wearing around his head.
It was an ice bucket. It was an ice bucket.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, right?
No one gave a shit. Like, it was just chaos behind the scenes. That's what it comes across as, because there's no real distinctive reason why this movie's made, except that it needs to be made.
Well, and
the
casting choices are so weird.
Oh yeah, like one of the scientist person who helps out Whoopi, who made her RoboCop. That's the original voice of Stu Pickles from Rugrats, for one.
Oh, Juliet Landau?
Yeah, that was a weird... I'm like, Drusilla? I was so surprised.
I actually knew her from Ed Wood, but yeah.
But yeah, like, it's weird.
And like Armin Mueller-Stahl, who's like a celebrated German actor. Like legit actor. I'm like, I see him and I'm thinking like, I'm waiting for something, horrible mean to happen or something. Cause like the last movie I remember seeing him in was Eastern Promises. And then I'm like, and Shaft?
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. Like, the fuck is Shaft doing here?
He's there because he was available? Like
whatever he wants, baby.
Exactly. And I'm looking, I'm like, what? This is it was almost like a cartoon that they just went, okay, we'll just cast real people.
Well,
do we need to go into the plot? Do we need to? Like, this is... I don't understand.
I was just saying, who wants to try and sum up the cinematic Drek?
Do you want me to try just from...
Yeah, go for it, Alex, because you're like the Ant-Man guy in the movies that just explains everything hilariously.
I'm going to try, but it's not going to work that well with this one. And I'm not going to even attempt to go fast because doesn't the plot just come... Okay,
it just happens.
Okay, let me think. Movie opens with bad text crawl because, they have to do that when they don't have a budget to show, even though they should have had a budget. The movie starts and you don't know whether it's in the far future or the past, but at some point, good doctor who might be evil decides to make a new Noah's Ark and blow up the world and start fresh again, but I don't know if that's ever referenced again. And in doing so, they found a way to clone dead species, and out of this somehow, it's not explained, but it's discovered that all of the dinosaurs they bring back are fully intelligent and speak English. And so I'm working. You can correct me after. Just and there is a, what do they call it? Dinocide, which is a dinosaur murder. And Theodore Rex, I don't know if he works as a cop at first. I wasn't paying enough attention.
I think he works in like the PR department or something.
He's
PR department.
He's the mouthpiece that they want as like, I guess, to speak to the clone dinosaur.
Yeah,
population?
he was like a token, for lack of a better term. Yeah,
and then he he gets a temporary promotion to detective to investigate because he's pushy. And Whoopi Goldberg is apparently a cyborg that we don't realize is a cyborg, and it's never explained in the movie, who somehow becomes partners for no reason. And then they're investigating things. I don't know what happens in the middle. I'm just staring at it. I'm thinking in my head, I'm staring at this movie going, what is happening? And evil plot to kill all of the humans again and start fresh again with all clones.
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting all the points.
Yep.
And Stephen McHattie shows up, who with his terrifying stare that he has in every movie that he's in. Talk about scary when you realize that he was married to Meg Foster for years. Could you imagine getting invited to a dinner party and having the two of them stare at you? it's like that's what I want. I want that American Gothic poster, but it's just them staring at you with their piercing eyes, always knowing what you're doing. But yeah, like he's in this, and I'm like, every actor is wasted here. But anyway, big goofy fight sequences. At one point, Theodore Rex gets shot, and I actually saw the bullet hole go into him, and he's like pretending he's dead, but I'm like, a pistol wouldn't penetrate, whatever. And then and then I cheered as it was either a car or a golf cart hit a billboard that somehow made it explode like it had rocket fuel in it.
All billboards have rocket fuel in them.
Of course.
That's common knowledge. Come on.
The alternate future. Yeah.
The absolute worst optical effect I've ever seen for a rocket going into space and exploding happened.
Don't forget about the flying bicycle.
Oh yes. Theodore Rex gets promoted to being a detective first grade by Shaft, and then he asks Whoopi to become his partner, and then it says at the end, "See you later" or something like that on the screen, and then the movie ends while I have my what the fuck hands up in the air going, what? What?
I should have watched this movie on edibles. I really should have.
Like I'm going, what? Like, you ever see that like animated GIF where it's like it's either a dog or a lizard or something with its hands in the air going, what?
Yeah.
What? That was me for about 20 minutes after it ended, and I'm going, wait, and all the while it percolating in my head that yes, I did see this in theaters, and then I remembered why I didn't remember, and it's because I hated it. It wasn't worth the $2 Canadian or like 20 cents American or whatever it was, the exchange rate at the time. So yeah, sorry if I've butchered the plot, but I don't know if I don't think I could have butchered the plot.
I don't know if I care enough to correct you, even if I thought differently. It's so, I don't know. I saw it the first time drunk. Watching it again, I had to watch it at increased speed.
Well, yeah. Well, the money I could see it went to the puppeteers, obviously. And
yeah.
But the rest, they built a bunch of interesting sets.
Yeah.
No, the costumes and the sets look good.
I hope that like Power Rangers or some other terrible TV show got the sets afterwards so they could actually utilize it all that was built, because
Theodore Rex's head is sitting in someone's garage right now.
Oh, I guarantee it.
It's probably like a year or two till it shows up at like Red Letter Media's offices or something.
Yeah.
But like I'm looking at it at the timeline of when this came out, and I'm thinking, is this like New Line's Cutthroat Island? Is this like what almost bankrupted them?
It might have been, because to give context, in 1990, New Line Cinema was like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Let's spend $13.5 million. 5 years later, Theodore Rex, 33.5. More expensive than any of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sequels even. They spent an inordinate amount of money on this movie and then ended up releasing it direct to video in America.
Yeah, like I'm willing to bet, like there are no numbers from what I could see anywhere. And I know it was, from what it says here, Italy didn't release it in theaters, but everywhere else did. And I know I saw it in theaters, but again, there was nobody there. So
that checks out, yeah.
It might have made, if I had to guess, maybe 5 million worldwide.
I think that's a safe estimate because Whoopi Goldberg was a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like it had to make more than like 500K or something. It couldn't have made $1 million. It had to make something because of the amount of promotion it had, at least here, and certain parts of Europe maybe. But like when it says worldwide release too, we're not taking into account as worldwide back in the 90s didn't necessarily mean 100 countries.
No, yeah, and it you probably have to judge like home video sales and things like that.
Yeah,
as
like
different, because I'm sure this thing got rented a lot for kids.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that it made 50 million once it hit home video.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I could see 5 million based on her name. Like I remember when I went to it, it was a matinee, but it was probably only in theaters that 1 week, maybe not even a full week.
Well, and overseas, action movies with lots of effects and stuff are just generally more successful because they transcend language, which helps a lot. But I want to mention that the best part about watching this film is Whoopi Goldberg does not want to be there.
Oh yeah,
you can see it.
And
pissed.
Well, she agreed to be in the film in 1992 and then tried to back out, and the producer filed a $20 million lawsuit against her. So she ended up doing the film, but as I guess an asshole fee, they had to add $2 million to her payout. So she made $7 million for being in Theodore Rex.
And ended up costing that producer more than he was trying to sue her for.
Oh, no, he wanted 20.
No, I'm saying, but
the budget of the film.
You know what I'm saying? Like the suck until it eventually probably made it. I mean, then again, who knows? It doesn't have a Blu-ray release. It only has a DVD that's been out of print for 15 years.
Between cable and VHS and everything, it might have broken even against all of the money and promotions, because you got to remember, it was until basically the last minute going to be in theaters in the US. So that means they were spending money on prints and ads. And then, so, I mean, it's totally possible they spent 10, 15 million just promoting it and then dropped it direct to video.
And like Mike said, that the posters were everywhere here. Like our like the big chain here was Rogers Video, and it was basically our Blockbuster. Only difference being that Rogers is also the cable company that runs 90% of cable companies in Canada. Also owns 50% of all television stations. They own everything. They're
cell phone provider too, right?
Cell phone, television. I don't think they have their hands in movies yet. They own the Blue Jays. Like they're like everything.
That's insane.
Anyway, yeah, like it's and they're just merging with the third biggest company, and they apparently got approved. So yes, we now will have two companies that run everything in Canada.
Wow.
Anyway, they had posters and standees there, but Jumbo Video did as well, and that was the older like chain that was sort of like, it was like Hollywood Video. And I remember like every city you went to that had a Jumbo Video or even multiple had that standee probably for 10 years or more, just standing there, in the back somewhere.
Now, speaking of standees, I decided to do a little trip on eBay, my favorite thing.
Oh, good Lord.
You can get Rumble in the Bronx, Theodore Rex, and Bed of Roses for $161 Canadian plus $71 shipping. And you can get concept art from this movie for $134. What can I say? My birthday's coming up in October. I need Theodore fucking Rex in my house.
You want to, dude, you want to go viral? You buy the three of them, and then you live stream yourself destroying Rumble in the Bronx and Bed of Roses, and just keep the other.
Jeez.
Yeah.
This is This is terrible. So yeah, this movie is so not worth your time. Fuck this movie. I would like to know if there is like a riff tracks on this. There would have to be. Is there?
I don't know offhand.
I think it's like the fact that it hasn't had a video release in like 15 years, and I mean anywhere. It hasn't had an HD copy even released to streaming anywhere in the world.
Oh wow.
So they are either terrified, afraid of it, or I don't know. Do you think there could be some rights issues involved with it at this point, or was it an original property?
Yeah, it would straight up belong to Warner Brothers.
Yeah. Oh, just wait. Coming soon on Max, Theodore Rex 2, starring I don't know, Aquafina and we'll get Kevin Hart and Dolph Lundgren, and we're just gonna we're gonna put like a fake tail on Dolph Lundgren, and then he's gonna be the T-Rex with a little bit of makeup, and that's it. I'd watch it.
So basically, Mario is the Super Mario Brothers movie from back in the day.
I mean, I'd watch it. I'd watch it. I'd watch it hard. Like if you ever want, well, actually, don't play a drinking game with it. Otherwise, you'll just die. Try watching Kindergarten Cop 2.
Oh God, man. God, why? No. I already have enough pain today. Oh man.
All right, so we're going to move on to our second film in this cornucopia of crap. And this one, I actually found out a lot of stuff I didn't know about this. So to set the scene, the next movie we're going to be talking about is a film that also rode on the dinosaur popularity that was really big in the 1990s. And that is the movie by Charles Band and Albert Band by Moonbeam Entertainment, a subsidiary of Full Moon Entertainment, Prehysteria, starring a young Austin O'Brien, the kid from Last Action Hero, which I didn't know. Yeah, and this movie, I liked it more than I thought I would, because I started going into some of the behind the scenes stuff. I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. Paramount funded this.
Yep.
Because a lot of Full Moon movies were made for about $800,000. This movie, I think, had a budget of like 1.3. So anything that was done under the Moonbeam label looked good, but not great, but better than your average Full Moon movie. So like better than most of your Subspecies, your Puppet Masters, even Trancers, which is one of my favorite series of all time.
Well, better is a relative term.
Yeah, better is a relative term here.
Well,
but it was also...
Oh, sorry, please.
Oh, no, I was about to say, and these were shot on 35 millimeter. So that's why they look so good, quote, again, relative term. And Prehysteria is the only one that got a Blu-ray release pardon me, in the last couple of years. So there is a demand for it, and the rights have now reverted back to Full Moon in the last couple of years. I don't know whether the rest of the series has been released yet onto home video, but there was like 4 sequels, I want to say.
3. Or, 2. There's 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. And then this movie was re-released in Germany under Jurassic Kids because why not? And yeah, this movie I liked. It was a mix of rod and cable puppets, stop motion animation, some composite stuff. And I don't know, there was just one of the quotes that came out of one of the videos that I watched. There's a channel that's really entertaining to watch. He's called Good Bad Flicks. And it turns out Austin O'Brien, when he was performing with one of the puppets, which was named Elvis, we'll get into that in a minute.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. So he's holding the T-Rex, and evidently he was quoted somewhere saying there were times he forgot it was not real, because you can just kind of see it kind of, for that time period, like kids movies, like they're just pumping them out, but there's a sense of weird kind of wonder with this one. But then the acting is where this movie really falls apart. Although I like Stephen Lee in it, mostly because I like him in the Stuart Gordon movies I've seen him in, and I think he was Duffy in RoboCop 2. So anyway, to sum this movie up, basically this museum curator guy goes to South America, finds dinosaur eggs because reasons, brings them back to America. A dog steals the wrong cooler because that's what dogs do.
Well, actually, there's a reason for that.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, because remember the dog had a litter of puppies and they gave away all the puppies and the dog's motherly instincts were still like really strong. So it sensed that cooler was full of eggs. The babies were like about to hatch. So the dog took them because remember then the dog went and like hatched them basically.
Oh, that's right.
But Michael, you're forgetting something here.
Oh boy, please tell me.
I thought you were a modern engine.
Oh yeah, there's that too. Especially the last shot of this movie where the person is just standing there dressed in full South American regalia and a giant fucking knife, and it just ends.
But I watched this and I went, well, first of all, I hated it. Like I hated it so bad. This is one of those movies where it was on the VHS shelf of every video store I've ever been to, and it was never rented.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the poster. I remember thinking, hey, that's the kid from the movie I do like, but I never wanted to ever rent it. And in watching this might have... I can't say it's the worst acting. It might have the worst acting from professional actors I've ever seen.
This... I'm going to agree, but I have to like speak in Tamarian for a moment. I think that, from Star Trek where we speak in metaphors. The way I feel about this movie is Sam Neill in the mouth of madness on the blue bus.
Screaming?
Just screaming. Like every line of dialogue in this movie made me want to like throw things at my television, like stupid goddamn kids or stupid it was irritating.
The daughter is insufferable.
Yeah, I was gritting my teeth through about half of it, and then I would just walk out during dialogue.
I made a few notes of things that, again, made me throw the what the fuck hands up. When the daughter is listening on her Walkman, and she picks it up to look at it like she's reading text on the tape. Like, it's not an MP3 player. She's not reading liner notes, but she's sitting there and she's looking left to right. Like, what are you looking at while you listen to music?
See, I'm not going to shit on child actors because, a lot of the times
I'll shit on the director going, what do you like? Why didn't he just go, stop doing that? Stop being stupid.
I think some of the like little tiny, some of the shots of the dinosaurs are incredibly good. Like sometimes those dinosaurs look good, and it's when they're in like long shot or like a mid shot. But when you go in close up, I question the reason why the director of photography did it, because then they look fake. They look very fake.
I think the best looking one is probably the Rex, obviously, and then probably Madonna, which was the pterodactyl, which that's a weird thing too. They named all the dinosaurs after musicians. So you have Hammer, which was, I think, the Brachios. No, that's the Triceratops looking one. Jaeger, the Stegosaurus. Madonna was the pterodactyl. Paula was the Brachiosaur, and Elvis was the T-Rex.
But I mean, yeah, we all had our hands up in the air at times for this movie in different ways, right?
I love this film.
Okay, and I can see why you love it.
Okay,
I hated it. I didn't love to hate it. Okay, the saving grace for this movie, for me personally, are the two goons that are hired.
Oh yeah, the very racist Italian goons.
Yes. Yeah. Because I was so offended for my people, and at the same time I went, I think I know those guys. I think every Italian person knows those guys.
At least you can sleep easy knowing that right now Mario is the biggest movie in the world, so your people are vindicated.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's a Mario.
Old cartoon Italian plumbers are vindicated across the planet.
But still, when they're in the car driving up and they're making fun of, I was like, you know what? These guys are giving it 110%. Everybody else is they're giving it something, but this was a movie. Okay, this was a movie with props looking for a plot.
Yeah,
Sure,
very
yeah.
much so. Yeah.
Well, so there are a few things you want to keep in mind historically about Prehysteria. Number one, this is an era from about, I think it was 88 or so to about 1996 or 97, where Full Moon was making movies almost exclusively with Paramount for about $1 million to $2 million each. It's why the Puppet Master movies, the first three in particular, are like very expensive movies, especially the third one. So they had this deal with Paramount where if they came up with something they wanted, they'd get the money and they could go do it. Prehysteria was directed mostly by Albert Band, Charlie Band's father. And Albert Band had directed, I don't know, 80 movies, maybe more before he did this. And he was notorious for two things later in his career. One, being really weird as a human being. Which I blame on him living in Italy for so long because I think that he just got like some European mentality that just seems odd to Americans.
Dude, that tracks. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, I mean Italy's weird, you know. But number two, he was known for just not really giving a crap. And the most famous example of that is a story about when he was making, I think it was Ghoulies 2. Was the one he directed, because he would come in and direct movies for Charlie. Yeah, it was Ghoulies 2. He would come in and direct movies for his son Charlie when he was like desperate, basically. And Albert kind of hated that he had to work for his son. So, but on Ghoulies 2, there's this famous story about how he was directing a scene and he was literally, while he was directing the movie, he was just reading a newspaper. He wasn't even watching them act. And famously, Billy Butler, the now producer but actor at the time, went to him after his close-up and said, "Hey, Albert, is there, like, what did you think? Like, is there anything you'd like me to do? Is there anything you want to tell me about my performance?" And Albert turned to the camera operator and said, "Hey, was it in focus?" And the guy said, "Yes, Albert." And he said, "Kid, it was fucking brilliant."
Oh, God.
So I just want to point out that yeah, Albert Band was notorious for having a weird sensibility and also just kind of wanting to get the work done and go home. So you end up with Prehysteria, which has, I mean, for the time period and for the budget, phenomenal special effects most of the time. What was his name? The guy who handled most of it was David Allen. Handled most of the effects, and he was the guy behind all of the Puppet Master effects until he passed away. You know, he was a stop motion guy, a puppet guy. And so I think that stuff works pretty well, especially in the context of a kid's movie. But no, there's tons of stuff in it that's just kind of weird and doesn't really fit.
You know what? Again, maybe to speak to what Aaron said earlier, it has a very Canadian feel. But it also, you know what it is? It's got that early Nickelodeon, like we're talking early Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Early Nickelodeon, like
Disney Channel vibe, right?
Not Disney, specifically Nickelodeon, where it was a lot of weird co-productions that they used to do with like YTV up here for kids.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what year was this one again?
93, because it came out not too long before Jurassic Park.
It feels like they were trying to capitalize on Jurassic Park and Indian in the Cupboard. Which I think was early. Like there was that fascination with like little things that come to life.
Well, and Charlie Band has always had a preference for little monsters and little creatures. I mean, always.
And obviously beyond that, like that made sense too. But like it's just looking at it, it feels like something that could have only come out in the big boom of direct-to-video stuff that happened, 88 to when they started to get cheap enough that people could actually own tapes, like 88 to like 94.
Yeah. It has this weird time capsule feeling to it where it perfectly encapsulates everything about the era that it's from. Like the thing that makes this stick out to me as a 90s kids movie is the dumb boyfriend who has weird Pauly Shore vibes.
Yeah.
What the fuck is with that guy?
Oh, that's the best.
Well, remember, Pauly Shore was quote unquote famous.
Yeah. He was everywhere
because of his immense talent, and not because his mother owned the biggest comedy club in America, right?
No.
It
He was
has
the weasel squeezing the juice.
It has nothing to do with that, and he, isn't bitter when anybody brings that up now, right?
Not at all. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, watching this, some of the performances, I didn't mind Austin O'Brien. Like I said, this kid would later go on to Last Action Hero. I felt he was having the most fun with it. I decided to look into some of the actors after. I think the dad is still acting. I know Stephen Lee, who was the bad guy Rico, kept doing roles for years, and I've enjoyed all the roles I've ever seen him in. He passed away in 2014. The girlfriend who is the museum assistant or the archaeologist, whatever she was, she didn't do much after this. The daughter, I don't think ever did anything after this as well. And then the other people are just like random character actors who you might see in like the odd thing of like, here's NCIS episode 124, whatever.
Well, and then Frank Welker, because Frank Welker's all
the voice of
animals.
everything. Yeah, exactly.
all
Megatron.
animals. Yeah, so he's the voice of most cartoon characters of humans, every animal, and whatever inanimate object that makes a sound or a fart.
So Megatron fights dinosaurs. Yeah, like, I don't know, like, watching this, I liked it more than I thought I would. It's fairly harmless kids entertainment, although one thing that really caught me is a little weird. There's a moment where the character of Vicky and Rico are fighting over the cooler, and Rico keeps questioning her. Where's my cooler? Where's my cooler? Give me my keys. I got kind of a weird rapey vibe in there, and I didn't like that. But evidently that was fine back then.
Yeah, there was uncomfortable things in this plot that, and just the way it was shot in certain moments where I'm like, you sure that was the good move to go with?
Yeah,
I thought Rico in most of the scenes that he was in was not only over the top, but he made me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
in
it was
them. Like, is this supposed to be funny or is this supposed to be like menacing? Like, because he could be literally crazy and he's just coming across as being threatening or rapey. Exactly. Like, I don't know. I obviously did not like this movie, but Rico kind of really put me off.
And again, maybe chalk it up to Italian. If this movie was shot entirely in Italy for an Italian audience, people wouldn't have maybe noticed. It's just, but no, actually,
Europe is different.
Yes, Europe is different. Like, occasionally when we're sent horror movies for review, and I send it over to Aaron, and it turns out it's a porno.
Yeah,
that happened once. Whoops.
Yeah. Whoops.
And it's like it says right on here, supernatural horror with full penetration, and we're like, oh, we don't usually cover that stuff.
Well, there was more problems than that in that movie. There was holy crap.
Was it Maladingda or something like that? And when I contacted the company, they're like, yeah, it's Italian. I'm like, that's not an excuse.
Yeah, that's not an excuse.
That's not an
Maybe
excuse.
tell us next time.
And I was like, on the box, why don't you put supernatural horror erotica? No, you just put supernatural horror. And I'm like, okay. And I popped it in. It was like, there's boobs for a couple seconds. I'm like, okay, no big deal. And sent it off to Aaron, and he's like, there's a lot more than just boobs in this.
Yeah, I was uncomfortable and had to fast forward through multiple parts, and then you realize that the character, well, the actress wasn't, the character was supposed to be underage.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, shit. No, done.
And we were like, don't send more of these. I know they're culturally significant, but not for our audience.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
But yeah, I mean, like, looking at Prehysteria to, like, I guess just to kind of wrap up the like 45 minutes to an hour here, I don't know. Alex, I think you kind of hit it on the head where it feels like a weird Canadian co-production Nickelodeon style that could only have been made in that time, because as direct-to-video movies started going into the 2000s and whatnot, the budgets got higher, they started getting better stars, the special effects went up, and the plots, some of them were still hokey. Like, you'd still see that with like a lot of the Nickelodeon movies, with like the Fred movies, for example, but you'd get some really good kids movies like Agent Cody Banks, for example, or stuff like that.
This is, Prehysteria, it's more like pre-corporate. It's like before every kids movie had to be put through like a meat grinder and turned into like a paste that they could mold into whatever they wanted. There's freedom here with it, and I don't want to watch the second or third movie. Don't make me, Michael. You can't do it. But I can also see why somebody would like it. Like I can see, especially if you were a kid and watched it as a kid, I can see this being big for you. But because I had never seen it, going into it in my 30s, I'm like, oh, you know when kids say they don't like watching movies made before 2000 because they feel old, this movie feels old for a kid's movie.
I said to Darlene when I was done watching it, I said, I honestly thought that maybe a kid like of 7 or 8 today could still watch this movie and enjoy it. But it would be a rare kid to do even that. Just because I think all the characters are effectively insufferable through it. Like, both the kid characters are. The father's an idiot. The love interest is an idiot. The main villain's an idiot. It's just that, hey, is it silly, dumb, mindless entertainment? Absolutely. And it has cute dinosaurs in it.
I was waiting for like
could probably do it.
I was waiting for like Uncle Lloyd or the Toxic Avenger to show up, because it had that weird Tromaville vibe.
I could see that.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, like, if Troma had a budget and they went into true kids entertainment, I could see this. Yeah, I could see that.
I was waiting for more racist stuff.
Stereotypes?
Pop up. Yeah, racist stereotypes. I honestly thought there would be some sort of like quote unquote native dance or something like that to be done outside the house at some point, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it was unnerving.
Yeah, like the last shot of this movie, just before it hits credits, there's this South American individual, and they're standing there in the poncho, the war paint, this giant knife, and then credits. Like,
credits.
Okay,
that
very
makes sense.
Italian.
Yeah.
And we don't have an ending, so we're just gonna,
we just
end
end on a threatening moment. Yeah. Jesus.
God, man.
Maybe we should
I don't want to watch
Theodore Rex on this.
Okay. I found my note. There's one note I made, not for this movie. Sorry before you end up, Mike, but for Theodore Rex. Did you know who the toy maker was?
No, who was that?
He's one of the Storms from Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, Jesus Christ! How far has he fallen?
I mean, they obviously dubbed over his voice in it, because I don't think he really speaks English, or didn't very well. But I was looking at him. He's Rain, which I think he's the one that they based like
Raiden on.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. There's a strange video game connection, which I want to say I seem to remember some marketing material for this movie as well, for Prehysteria. Actually, Henrique, you might know this. Was there a fairly extensive Full Moon Entertainment thing filmed for this? Because I've seen videos on this where they show a lot of behind the scenes footage, because I remember Full Moon was really in the business of doing these little vignettes.
They were called video zones.
Yeah, video zones. Did this have a pretty extensive one?
I would almost guarantee it did. So Charlie, I have a lot of things I could say about Charlie Band, but one good thing about him is he appreciated the concept of people being fans of what he's doing very early on. So like, I just found the Prehysteria video zone. It's 21 minutes. So it's a pretty expansive one.
Oh, wow.
But he would always put these video zones at the end of movies where you got a little peek at how they made it, who was involved, and what they were doing next. That way he hoped it would cause fandom, of the Full Moon universe or whatever you want to call it. And he's right, because now that's the entirety of how his bread is buttered, is by those people who are big fans. So I mean, and honestly, some of the earliest excitement about filmmaking that I've ever had, which I mean, that's my day job is filmmaking, was watching these video zones and getting to see a little bit of how they animated a puppet, or how they did, you know, the laser effects, or who directed this scene and how they, you know, did all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing is, as when Prehysteria is done, you really need to watch the video zone to get the entire experience.
But say, yeah, like honestly, what made me a fan of Full Moon before we close this out was those video zones. I remember watching them on Puppet Master 2 and 3, on the Trancer stuff, on Robot Jocks, Crash and Burn, Arcade,
Yes.
Dr. Mordred, Bad Channels is one of my favorite Full Moon things. I know here on the show we're going to be doing a Full Moon month later on this year to talk about not just the big stuff you've probably seen like Subspecies and Puppet Master, but some of the lesser known properties. And I think that's what got me interested in movies, was knowing that movies were not just, they weren't just created whole cloth. There were stories behind it. And it was interesting to know how these puppeteers, these writers, these directors, like I remember I knew the name Phil Tippett before high school because I knew about stop motion and RoboCop and Empire Strikes Back. And it was just so fascinating to me. And I don't know, I don't know if many companies now put the love and attention into some of their special features. Some of them do, but not all of them. Like I know when I review movies here on Twig, special features is how I judge the quality of a disc release. The movie itself, you either like it or love it, but it's the special features that might keep you coming back.
I think it depends. I think it depends, Michael, now on the intent of the production. If your movie is being made, for lack of a better term, as red box filler, because there are people where they get a contract and their job is, I need
Just
to make a movie. I need to make a 74-minute movie for that, or for Tubi or whatever, and they'll put it out there. It might not be in the budget to even make behind the scenes stuff, so they just don't bother, right?
No, I can guarantee it's not.
Yeah.
So there we go. You know what I'm saying? And that wasn't to be like to be degrading or anything or say anything, you know.
It's just not on the cards for that movie.
Yeah, it's not. And whereas before, you know, home video ownership was, they needed to sell the extra features, right? Whereas now, when it's, you know, either a red box rental or an internet rental, they like, you get some people that are going to buy the discs, but for the most part, it's an afterthought now.
Yeah.
Even though people like us were collectors or you know, we look for certain things. So like, it's only either, and even sometimes super big budget things don't even have, you know, a lot of proper features anymore. It seems to be based on whatever fandom. Like if it's a Star Trek thing, you know, they're going to include a bazillion things because the fans will revolt if they don't, because they're the people that are still willing to spend, you know, $50 on a set for the fifth time. Whereas, you know, if you're, you know, X number of whatever Nicolas Cage direct-to-video movie he's doing in between his bigger pictures, you know, it might have a 2-minute interview snippet he did for, you know, Entertainment Tonight, and that's it.
Well, and it's important to keep in mind that as physical media continues to decline, it's hard to justify the cost of the film that's on the disc, let alone anything additional to add to it. And that's where it gets really challenging, because when DVD started and it was new and it was novel and it was incredibly financially lucrative, you could just put out a movie and be like, it's a special edition. And yeah, it was only $15 back then, but they'd sell 100,000 of them, 200,000 of them. And that's small movies.
And the scale too, like a VHS tape, let's say it cost internally $1 for some of the studios to produce, but then you're thinking of shipping, all the logistics of it. It takes up 2 to 3 times the space that a DVD takes up.
It's way heavier,
way heavier. And a DVD, including, you know, proper printing in it, a scale, they're maybe spending 10-15 cents of a big studio on a disc. So they could charge.
That's probably a little bit more aggressive than it's probably more like 60 cents, but the VHSs were like $3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was crazy. No, you're right though. DVDs were markedly cheaper.
And DVDs, when they came out, they were charging more than prospectively than the same release on VHS. So they were making magnitudes more net profit on each disc. So it made sense that they could throw that stuff in, fill up the rest of the space. And that's why you saw so many, Mike, where it was like single disc editions where they threw features on there. I was always more of a fan of 2-disc editions where the first disc is completely taken up with as much video data as possible.
Yeah, like I will always buy something that has special features 100%. And one person who almost always does extensive special features, and then we should probably begin to wrap this up, is anything that Tom Cruise does, like be it the Top Gun movies or the Mission Impossible stuff. Those are always filled to the brim. But with some of the comic book movies, it depends on the property. Sometimes you'll get some really fantastic stuff, and even some of the Disney stuff has been dropping off in quality where I'm like, I'm not so sure if I want to buy this physical anymore because I'm not getting what I want. But that's neither here nor there.
And very quickly, remember, that's intentional.
Yeah.
Why put extra stuff onto the Blu-rays and home video releases when what they really want you to do is funnel you into a consistently paying subscription service to watch and get those features, right?
That's why I always buy like movies or TV shows that I enjoy. I'll just buy it on a physical media. It doesn't matter what the special features are. I will buy it on a physical media. Done.
It takes a lot for me to buy things now. But again, that's maybe a topic for a future show, actually. Just talking about, so I guess long story short, folks, when it comes to Theodore Rex, no. Prehysteria.
Well, no, and you actually can't buy it right now.
Yeah, you actually
find
can't
an old copy because there's not an in-print copy anywhere in the world in any format.
Yeah, like if you want to look on eBay, there are versions available, but no. You can find this on YouTube pretty easily. As for Prehysteria, I don't think it's a terrible movie at times. I think it has, again, as Aaron said, a very narrow appeal for children. As an adult, you can skip this entirely. It's an interesting point to see where Austin O'Brien's career started before Last Action Hero. But other than that, it's entirely forgettable. It's one of Stephen Lee's most over-the-top performances.
If you're collecting Full Moon stuff and you can get a DVD for $5 or a Blu-ray for $10, go ahead. Yeah. Outside of that, it is both of these are watch them once and done, probably in most cases.
Yeah, for sure. So gotta thank everybody who stuck with us for listening to the show. Henrique, it has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. We are having you back for sure.
Anytime. I'm happy to join you guys.
All right, guys. So that's going to do it for us here at Loose Cannon, Twig's very own video store located next between the Weird Head Shop and that creepy guy in the trench coat who sells you unusual items. So anyway, for This Week in Geek, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
Henrique Couto.
And I've been Mike the Birdman saying, be kind, rewind.
Are either one of these any good? Sir?
What?
Are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Quick, change the channel.
You're wasting your life making shit. Nobody cares. These movies are terrible.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.